Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Wellness by Design today. We've all heard about oxidative stress and antioxidants are good, but there's one antioxidant that's way more powerful than a lot of the others. I'm really excited to have an expert in that to share what he's learned about this with you today. So, really happy to have Ken Swartz here. Welcome, Ken.
Glad to be on.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you here because I didn't know about this super antioxidant, but you're going to tell us a bit more about it. But I'm going to tell everyone a little bit about you first. And also, I want to say if you have any questions, you can just go put them in the comments and we'll answer them along the way, okay? All right. So, Ken Swartz is also known as Ken the Scientist, is the founder and chief science officer of C60 Purple Power, a health and wellness company committed to delivering the highest quality C60 products available. Ken earned a Master's of Science degree from the University of Colorado at Denver and a Bachelor of Science in Economics from Arizona State University. He spent the early part of his career as a secondary school teacher and is passionate about helping and educating people. Then Ken the Scientist has ran several research science laboratories over the course of his career and discovered C60 while developing the MOXIE fusion reactor. During his research, he became aware of the powerful free radical neutralizing properties of C60. We've got a comment here. I appreciate the great Dr. Kenneth for his healing herbal remedies he prepared for me after being a sufferer of diabetes disease for years. It was very surprising how I got cured from Dr. Kenneth's herbal medicine that quickly cleansed my whole body. And today, after checking myself in the hospital, I was found negative. Oh, well, this is fantastic. Thank you very much, Tommy, for your comment. Okay, Ken, let's hear a little bit about, well, we'll get into what C60 is, but like, how did you come to discover C60? I know you said you're working in a lab. What is the MOXIE fusion reactor and how did that make you discover the C60?
Well, it's what it is. It's metal oxygen fusion. It's like a new process of fusion, and and just in the studying of like a lot of the scientists who'd worked on it, it was the late doctor this and the late doctor that, and so I didn't want to become one of those that or my crew become that. So I went out, because these were professional doctors. They scientists. They knew what they were doing, but something obviously was happening that was impacting their health in a very negative way. So so I went out and I discovered this stuff called carbon 60. Its science name is Buckminster fullerene. Its nickname, everybody calls it C60. And they give one set of rats C60. The other control group didn't get any. They'd hit them with a fatal dose of radiation. All the control rats would die, and all the C60 rats would live. So when I learned about that, I got a couple sources of C60, and we were just taking it during the experiment time. And we're all still here, by the way. And then afterwards, I just kept taking it, and because a little, I wasn't like totally faithful because the afternoon blahs went away. You eat lunch and then at 2 o'clock you feel like you go to sleep. That kind of went away, and I used to drive motorcycles a lot, dirt bikes, and so I had a few injuries, and some of the aches and pains seemed to fade from that.
Mhm.
And but what really went off about, I don't know, 7 to 8 months after taking C60, I went to my eye doctor, and there's a long story. I won't go in here because we have limited time, but basically my drues or dry macular degeneration had disappeared, and he'd never seen that again in his many years of I guess being an eye doctor.
Wow. So you started off using it as a protector for yourself for radiation because you knew that it was working
Yeah.
on lab rats. And so then you started noticing all these other benefits. So you kept on taking it. And then eventually you
Mhm.
ended up making like you were making it for family and friends and
Yeah,
stuff.
well, one of the first ones, yeah, I started. Well, I've because everybody had an olive oil, right? It was extra virgin olive oil, and I have a sensitive digestive system, so I started making it in like avocado oil, which I can easily digest. And then like one of my friends, Gary Rodriguez, he was the electrical engineer on the project, and by then he had developed like severe wet macular degeneration. He had like lesions all inside of his eyeballs. We used to have that up, but somebody said we can't show that anymore. And so he did about a tablespoon of C60 in the MCT oil, because you have diabetes too, which is kind of a contributing factor for that.
Right.
MCT oil, that means medium chain triglycerides, and your liver can turn those into ketones, which then your body can use as flex fuel. Ketones, your cells can use the flex fuel instead of glucose. So you don't get that glucose crash where you can damage your body. So a little MCT, that's hint. Even if it doesn't have C60 in it, MCT oil is a really great thing for people with glucose processing issues. And about a year and a half of using it, his wet macular degeneration had completely healed too.
Wow.
And
That
so,
is amazing.
yeah. And so now, because, if just one thing happens, it could have been a fluke, right? Something magical could happen, But so when two people, and then we've had many, many other people say the same thing. And by the way, his type 2 diabetes basically went away too.
Wow.
So,
But it has been studied, besides you.
Oh, yes.
It's well known that C60. Well, actually, we should talk about you mentioned the carbon 60, but what is it? Where did it come from? Why, that's a model of it.
Back thing. Yeah. It's this is a 60 carbon atom shaped like a little soccer ball. And it was discovered in 1985, solved a long-standing mystery in astronomy, but the discoverers got a Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1996 because it's kind of unique. It's this round spherical molecule. It's completely unique in nature, has a totally different sort of chemistry than regular molecules, and so that's what it is. But it was hard to make, and it wasn't until like the early 2000s that they actually had enough of it. It was affordable, and so they did. Here's a molecule it's also found on Earth, but it's also mainly found in outer space, and they did toxicity studies, and they found it actually double the lifespan of test animals. And
so not toxic at all. The opposite of toxic.
Yeah, exactly. And then they did lots of studies. They did it on rats. They did it on mice. They've done things like the radiation ones. And then they found there's even more stuff as it's going along. They had one like with rabbits, and they gave the rabbits arthritis. And then they were checking, because C60 is a powerful antioxidant, and it basically neutralizes the superoxide, which is the most damaging radical in the body, and then the hydroxyl ion, which is the second most damaging oxidative radical. What's really unique about C60, it doesn't interfere with the body's signaling molecules, which are like nitrogen oxides. That's a vasodilator that makes your capillaries contract or shrink or open. And hydrogen peroxide, the body also uses that as a signaling molecule. And then there's some based around sulfur, iron, and zinc. And that's why things like vitamin E, if you take too much vitamin E, you can have a negative effect, because that vitamin E is an antioxidant, and it starts working on the oxidative radicals the body uses for signaling molecules. And, if your capillaries can't dilate or contract, that's a problem. And so that's why you have it. But C60 had no toxicity at all. They did one study, because they had all these beneficial studies, right? So they said, how much C60 does it take to poison an animal? So they did 1 gram of C60 per kilogram of rat weight, which is 10,000 times a health effective dose in other studies. And it still had no toxicity. So that's just, so it has no toxicity virtually any level. At least according to animal studies. But they have found other things. Like I went back and they had the rabbits, they gave them arthritis. So then they put the C60 in there, and yes, it took down the inflammation, but then it also regrew the cartilage, because it stimulates stem cell production. So there's a whole process on that, but if we get to it, we can talk about it.
Wow. Okay. A lot of people may not understand all that body science that goes on, but I think the hearing about what the studies are saying is really key, right? That people understand that it is very powerful. Probably is it the most powerful antioxidant out there, would you say?
It's the most powerful selective antioxidant.
Okay.
And its key is it takes out superoxide and the hydroxyl ion. And what it does, it's called an SOD mimic, superoxide dismutase. That's usually what takes out superoxide along with catalase. But C60 can do the job itself. And the number one place where superoxide's made is in the mitochondria. So the C60 goes through the gut barrier, is actively uptaken by the cells, is actively uptaken by the mitochondria. They seem to know how to use it, and then they use it. So as we get older, a lot of our antioxidants go down, and things like SOD and catalase and glutathione, they can't really be supplemented for. It's really difficult. There is no supplementation until C60 for SOD and catalase. And so when you take that, it basically restores mitochondria function. So people with mitochondria dysfunction, it's usually due to a lack of SOD or catalase, or maybe even glutathione. C60 can restore function in the mitochondria, and that's because there's nothing else really that can.
Mm. Okay, so it's a powerful antioxidant. It's found in nature, but it can also be made.
Yes, yeah, that's what it is. I mean, like the burnt wick of your candles, like 0.25% C60. But it'd take an awful lot of burnt wicks of candle to eat to get a decent amount. So it's actually produced in the lab. We use sublimated C60. That means it's never been exposed to solvents. There's some methods of after you make the C60 how to extract it, because usually it's actually made in the same way it's made in giant red stars. They have this chamber and they have like 1/10 of an atmosphere of helium, and then they got 2 carbon rods, and they basically run an electrical current and it turns it into powder. And if you do it right, you get about 10% of that turns into C60, and a little bit of C70 and C84. Those are like cousins of C60, but they don't really have health benefits. And then you have to separate that all. In a sublimator, it's basically like evaporation. It's when a solid turns into a gas, then back into it. So they do that, and that's how you get your 99.99% pure C60. Now the another method is they use a methylbenzene, which is, you don't like benzene's not so good for you. So, and then once they get the C60, then they bake off the methylbenzene, but you can never get rid of all of it. And so that's why, you probably want to look for sublimated C60 if you're looking for C60 product.
Okay, so look for sublimated C60. And why is it actually purple? Like, I know you call yours is called C60 Purple Power.
Yes.
It's actually purple?
Yeah, C60, when you dissolve it in clear coconut oil, because you've seen coconut oil has the same color as water. When you dissolve C60 in it, it turns it a purple color. Or a purple magenta color, but purple's close enough. And then when you put it like avocado or olive oil, which are tan, it turns them a dark amber.
Yeah, that's the ones I've been using, and they are more of an amber color. So I wondered about the purple. I mean, purplish, but not purple. So, so the MCT one is quite purple then.
Yes, if you put it out and look a little, when the jar or something, or clear something so you can see it. Yeah, you'll see it. Notice a purple color.
Okay, and so what kind of how long have you been had this on the market?
I think the company, I've been doing it for like 2014. And then the company started in 2016, because basically I started making formulations for my friends and family. And then I gave it to my healthcare practitioners, and they had great results. So they started giving it to their patients, and they had great results. And one thing led to the other. And so I finally decided I'd start a company. And so I was like a C60 milkman driving around town here in Denver and dropping it off at various clinics and stuff. And then what really took it off, in fact, took the whole C60 market off. There's a internet influencer called Cliff High, and he was on the Sarah Westall show, and he mentioned how C60, my product specifically, had saved his and his wife's life. And then, sales went through the roof. But then the whole C60 market took off because people finally learned about C60. And there's a lot of, it's in the early adapter phase. Most people have never heard about C60, don't know anything about its health benefits. And I guess we're doing an education to let people know about that.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the benefits or things that you've heard about? You mentioned like the macular degeneration resolved and other things. So what have you seen? And since you've been selling this product, and obviously you're probably getting testimonials from people, like what kind of things do you hear on these testimonials?
Well, from research and people stuff, it scavenges free radicals and reduces oxidative stress. That's the one. And then because of that, you get like healthy immune response, inflammatory response. So that's like you rub C60 on like a topical thing, or even like mosquito bites. If you get a mosquito bite, itching, put C60 on it. About 20 minutes later, you won't have the itching anymore. So it also helps healthy immune function. Does that in 2 ways. Obviously, when the immune cells have the C60, they can function fully, but it also stimulates stem cell production. So when you get an immune challenge, basically the body takes stem cells, which are like baby cells. They haven't decided what they want to be. And then they can convert themselves in whatever type of body tissue they want. In the case, if the immune system needs stuff, you got T cells and B cells and macrophages, right? They'll just convert and step up. And also, one first thing people notice is a lot of mental clarity, because anything in your body that has a lot of mitochondria in it, that's the first place C60 is going to benefit. And so your brain, what's 3 pounds, uses 20% of your body's energy. So the first thing, people get mental clarity, like the brain fog goes away. They're able to focus more. And that's probably the first thing. And then also you get like an increase in energy. A lot of that is because the second type of organs in your body that have the most mitochondria are the endocrine system. They're just packed full of mitochondria because they get to make the hormones. And so the mitochondria make pregnenolone, which is the precursor molecule for all the hormones. So like, your pineal gland, you'll get more melatonin, your pituitary hypothalamus complex, human growth hormone, and who knows, there's dozens of others that hormone produces. And then your adrenals, you got mineralocorticoids, glucocorticoids, and androgens, which go into testosterone and estrogen. So your hormone levels rise, and that's and of course it increases longevity, which is they found in the animal studies, and so it gets us promotes healthy aging, and because they found one of the first studies that was on Japanese women, they put C60 in a cream, and then they rubbed the cream on their face, and they found C60 significantly reduced wrinkles and fine lines. And then they also did one where they had a topical application for hair growth, and they found that C60 would increase the rate of growth rate of hair. It didn't restart the sleeping follicles, unfortunately. You have to find other products to do that. But what if you did have hair, it'd grow faster. And people notice that your nails and hair will grow much faster, and with C60.
Mm. Wow. And so that's pretty amazing. These are what different studies have shown. So good for wrinkles, good for the endocrine system, good for, well, I mean, mitochondria are everything, right? But the
Yes.
mitochondria make all of our energy. And so some of our organs, as you mentioned, have more mitochondria than others, the brain, the eyes, which is probably why it's working for macular degeneration, the endocrine system, the heart, right?
Yes,
The heart
the
as
muscle
well.
system. Yeah, the heart is just packed with it because that's got to work all day long. And so yeah, so all of that, anything with high mitochondria concentrations is really C60 really benefits, and so a lot of athletes use it too. And they especially like the athletes like the MCT coconut oil version, because the MCT is like an instant energy boost along with the C60, so it reduces like your buildup of lactic acid. And it's not banned by any sports organization because it doesn't fit. It's not a drug or mineral or nutrient or supplement. It's like an allotropal carbon. It's in its own little class. And so we've had some mid-pack people go to become champions in their field using C60.
Oh, can you tell us any
No.
names?
And another company, not our company, sells it to racehorses in Europe, and they're winning their races. So, but
Wow.
we won't mention the company or where it's happening.
Wow. Okay. So Ken, what about people like your own customers? What kind of someone's trying, how long does it take for them to kind of start seeing results, and what kind of results are you hearing about specifically from your
Well,
customers?
you get different sets of results. You get like the energy is almost immediate. Like within a week, you're going to feel like the increase in mental clarity. You get like a boost of energy, and then there's long term things. As C60, when you have C60 in your body, it allows your body to rebuild itself correctly. Proteins aren't damaged during construction, and also certain things like once you get the inflammatory responses reduced, especially in the gut, there's a process with your body. Like you have two types of inflammation. You have acute and chronic. Now, acute's when you twist your ankle, right? It swells up, you have that whole thing, but and kind of immobilizes it, so you can't. It gets sensitive, so you don't want to step on the ankle. But there's another thing it does, and that suppresses dopamine. And dopamine's the motivation molecule. It gets up in the morning, so people just feel, oh, I just want to lie around while your ankle's healing, and that's great because nature intended it that way.
Yeah.
Problem is when you have chronic inflammation, like in the gut or somewhere else, well, now you've got that same dopamine suppression, and you just want to lie around in bed and do nothing all day. And so when you take C60, it suppresses that inflammation goes down, because inflammation starts with oxidative radicals. The oxidative radicals are neutralized before the whole cascade of inflammation can happen. And so you're and then the dopamine levels will rise, and then people will get up off the bed. They'll go do the exercise routine they used to do, or go do hobbies and things that they used to do, because that just that lack of motivation is usually the dopamine suppression. And that's the second one. You'll get that dopamine kicks up, and then the third one, you get all kinds of benefit because I mentioned what happens, our body is full of senescent cells, especially when you get a little bit of gray hair. And senescent cells are like zombie cells. They're at the end of their lifespan, and but they don't really want to die, and so they go to the fermentation process. We burn oxygen. Fermentation, it goes through a different process, and so they're like draining energy in the body, and they're poisoning the cells, putting out their own little type alcohols, and and what happens is, and part of that process, but through that process, the cell's nuclear DNA and process stops providing things like SOD and catalase to the mitochondria, so they have to go into fermentation too, and it just becomes a huge drain on the body. Well, when you take C60, it goes into those senescent cells, restarts those mitochondria, and those mitochondria, besides making ATP and ramping things up, they'll send little messages to the cell's nuclear DNA saying we need to do this and that and reproduce and things like that. And if they don't get the right messages back, which they won't if it's a senescent cell, the mitochondria will initiate apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, and that cell will break down into apoptotic bodies, and the phagocytes will come and clean it out. It's non-inflammatory, by the way. And then now that tissue or organ, especially when a whole bunch of senescent cells go away, doesn't have enough cells to do the job, so they send out messages for more stem cells. And then the stem cells, when you get enough stem cells, the stem cells can convert themselves into like new thyroid tissue or brain tissue or whatever it is they need. They can convert into whatever it is. And so we've had people that take C60 for a while. It's been 3 months to a year. They have like huge levels of stem cells. Like 7-year-olds have the levels of like 20-year-olds in stem cells, and that's literally the body is rebuilding itself. And that's like the third benefit you'll see over time. That happens 6 months to a year out. And so what people do is which is actually something I should mention, by the way, now, is a counterindication. So I do that. And it's one of the things that C60 will do is if you're taking a blood thinner medication, the C60, because it restarts the adrenal glands, it'll make the mineralocorticoids, and your blood can actually, the underlying problem, which was causing your blood to be, quote, thick, goes away. And if you're taking a blood thinner, now your blood can be too thin. So if you are doing a blood thinner, you need to consult with your doctor. Say, I'm going to take C60. It solves the problem, and if you need to know about this and do more testing.
Mm-hmm. So be pretty careful and talk to your doctor. Yeah.
And you might even think about hormones, because too, that takes a little bit longer. For instance, we found that one of the things is that, like, we had a guy, he was on hormone replacement therapy, went down to his doctor, had a 350 level of testosterone, which is pretty low, 70-year-old guy. And then he got the creams, he's up in like the low 700s, bouncing around in there. And then he decides to take C60, and like 3 months later, he goes to his doctor and it's 1200. So his doctor took him off the cream. So that's one of the other things that C60 does. It kind of restores testosterone and estrogen and progesterone levels. And so it does have a side effect of increasing libido significantly of people. So that's
most people will be happy about that.
You have to be aware of when you take C60.
Right. So if you are on hormone replacement therapy, that's another thing where you might
want to do it. Yeah, it takes a longer to ramp up, but still, that's something that you might want to just do some extra testing, because it's not as critical as for instance blood thinning. But
Okay.
yeah, you could definitely. We've had lots and lots of people either go off hormone replacement therapy or have their amount of hormones they're taking significantly reduced.
Wow. Okay. So tell the audience what form does this come in? You've kind of alluded to some of them in there, but let's talk about how people can buy it.
Well, one thing is C60, it has no solubility in water. It's like all carbons, and carbons like other carbons. So it has to be dissolved in oil. And of course, what we've decided at C60 Purple Power, we've decided like we have like the Goldilocks of oils. It's like there's oils that are really, really long shelf life, but are really bad for you, like canola oil and sunflower oil and safflower oil and soybean oil and cottonseed oil, right? You shouldn't be taking those, because what they're really high is omega-6s, right? And omega-9s, and that causes inflammation. And so those are inflammatory oils. Then on the other side, we have oils that are really good for you, like flaxseed oil or hemp seed oil or fish oil, because they have really high levels of omega-3s. But the problem is that goes rancid really quickly. In fact, You should always buy those oils from the refrigerated section of your health food store. Don't buy a fish oil off the shelf, because you don't know how long it's been there. It could easily be rancid. If you buy it at the refrigerated section, it's way better for you, because rancid oil is bad. So we picked like the Goldilocks. We got extra virgin olive oil, People have been using olive oil for thousands of years. It's good. It's got a nice omega-3 and omega-6 balance, so it's anti-inflammatory and it's healthy for you. And then also, because I had that sensitive digestive system and olive oil tends to go through me if I take too much, I also have it in avocado oil, which is also has a great omega-3 6 balance and is very healthy for you and easily digested, by the way. And it doesn't have quite the bite. That extra virgin olive oil can have a bit of a bite to it. We've found one that isn't so bitey, but still, it's extra virgin olive oil. And then also we have the MCT coconut oil, and that's because of the medium chain triglycerides and people with glucose processing issues. And that's a really, really stable oil, by the way, because it's a saturated oil. It's a distillate of coconut oil, and they're all saturated. MCT is usually C8s and C10s, and they're and occasional C6s. And that's medium chain triglycerides. They're very stable.
Mm. Okay, so it comes dissolved in these oils. So how do people take it?
Well, basically, there's two ways. Some of it, there's two ways you can. We never put it in capsules because it would take like each capsule. Basically, you take most people, it's just a teaspoon a day in the morning is the way you go. It would take like 4 or 5 capsules to do that. And then you have problems digesting the gelatin. So that would be a problem. So basically, we have in some of our smaller products, we have an eyedropper, but you can, if you have an eyedropper, just take it out. It's usually just poured out a teaspoon to a tablespoon. If you're let's say in your 30s, 40s, 50s, you weigh, let's say 100 to 140, 50 pounds, probably a teaspoon in the morning would be fine for you. As you get older, our antioxidant production of SOD, catalase, and glutathione goes down. Got a little gray hairs there, or a little bit heavier. I take a tablespoon in the morning. So that would be more so. But really, even people working on health problems don't usually take more. You don't need to have more than 2 tablespoons a day on even if you're older and working on a health problem. So because what happens, even though C60 has no toxicity at any level, at some point it's just counterproductive, right? You're going to get any benefit from it. It's just going to go through you, and and C60 is expensive, by the way. It's high purity C60 costs more by weight than gold. The whole process of making it and purifying it, because you got to recreate the conditions in the outer atmosphere of a giant red star in the lab, and then you have this. It's really hard actually to separate the C60 from the other C70, C84, and that's why we have to have a sublimator, and you can only do small batches, and you got to have like a scientist guy there to run the sublimator, because that's more of an art than that's a art, running a sublimator. It's like cooking, actually. You have to be like a great sublimator chef.
Well, I've actually been a customer for a couple of weeks now, or started taking it a couple of weeks ago. So that's why I wanted to have you on the show. I've noticed since I started taking it, definitely more energy, sleeping better. Also noticed dreaming more. What's up with that?
I don't know what it is. People have more vivid dreams.
Yeah.
And people say, I haven't dreamed for years and now I can remember them. And we're not exactly sure. Maybe the brain is just working better, and it's not, because part of C60 helps antioxidants, so it helps the brain clean itself, but also the brain dreams have a lot to do with like dealing with issues and things. But there's more to that, because we have a lot of people like remote viewers and psychics and dowsers and other people like in that zone, and they just say that when they take C60, everything gets clear. It's like the brain fog goes away, or the static goes away, and they can do whatever they do much better than they could before. So it just really enhances brain health, and that could just be due to the mitochondria. And like we had one doctor, he was taking like 2 ounces a day, and which is a lot, right? But doctors they kind of like to experiment. He claimed he was becoming telepathic, so
Wow.
some weird side effects if you take a lot of C60.
Well, if it's enhancing that the pineal gland, that's supposed to be, our psychic kind of connection. It has light photon, light sensors in it, like the eyes.
It exactly is. It's got a retina. If it did my macular degeneration and other people's, then and that's healthy, the retina. So I guess the third eye is literally part of the brain. It's nerve tissue, and so that would make a sense. I don't know if it's so that would make very good sense. That
well, I bet we'll hear more about that. Okay, I know that you're offering our cut the listeners of this show 10% off if they want to try it. So I put the link there and on the screen, but I'll also share it in the notes if anyone wants
Okay,
to try it. This is for 10% off. So you can try, just put in that code, follow this link and the code design, and you'll get 10% off. But also I want to ask you, I always ask my guests one question. Excuse me. And that is, what's one action someone could do today to improve their health? I wonder what you're going to say, Ken.
I would say intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting.
Yes, I was, sometimes I had a little bit more alcoholic beverages, or maybe ate more than I should have. And over the years, and, I'd gained a little bit of extra weight. And I had tried, various diets. I did got rid of the 3 whites, milk, cheese, bread, those things, and sugar. That was sugar, the 3rd white. And I'd done this diet and that diet, and I would go down to a certain level, and I would just hit a barrier. Right, I couldn't get down below it, and pretty much all the diets did that. But when I learned intermittent fasting, I just punched right through that barrier, and for a while I was at the weight I was in high school. So and then I've kept my weight down. I came up a little bit, but I kept my weight really good and much lower than it used to be. And depending on your age, the intermittent fasting window closes. I'm on the 18-hour fasting window. Right. What it does is, basically what happens is your liver has glycogen, and it'll burn it up. And when that happens, it'll burn it up in that 18 hours. The younger you are, by the way, the shorter your the wider your window is, I guess. So if you're in your 20s or 30s, you probably get away with a 12-hour fasting window. Okay. And as you get older, that fasting window gets bigger and bigger, so eventually when you're 70s, it's 1 meal a day thing. But what happens is your liver burns the glycogen up, and then it sends out little messages to the cells, say, hey, dump to your fat cells, start dumping, lipids into our blood system, because the rest of the body needs things. And the first where it goes, it gets rid of your fatty liver. And that's really a problem with people today, is fatty liver, because it just makes sure. So the first place, because the glycogen is stored in the liver, the glycogen goes away in your liver, and the first place the fat goes away is in your liver. And then every day your fat cells get a message to dump. So because usually they just fill up, get bigger, right? So every day, when they get that intermittent fasting, they get a message to start dumping. So they'll load and dump and load and dump, and so they get in the use of dumping that out, and your weight just goes way down. It's just amazing how well intermittent fasting works.
I love intermittent fasting too. I mean, not just for weight loss, and some people might think, I didn't want to do it because I'm very thin, but I didn't lose any more. It just made me, I had less inflammation. I have less inflammation. I have more clarity. It's just, every time we eat, we're challenging that immune system, right? So it gives the immune system, the digestive system, all that a bit of a break.
Yeah, but think about it. You get up in the morning, people get up in the morning, depending on your, you eat, let's say it's 7:00, right? You get up in the morning, you eat 7, you eat some food, right? Then you got lunch, and you come home, and at dinner time, what is it, 6, 7? And then maybe you go late at night and you have some snacks, watching television late at night. Well, your body's been working, you've got your digestive system working 16, 18 hours a day. Yeah. If you went out and physically worked 16, 18 hours a day, you would be exhausted. And your digestive system's the same way. So you need to give that thing, especially as you're older, a break. And, I'm working in the 4 to 6 hour range, depending on, sometimes I'm good, or you got dinner with friends. So, I make it up later the next day with longer fasting window. But and things, I noticed a lot of things, like my digestion became so much better. Yeah. Things that I used to have problem digesting, no problem. Everything in my digestive system became so much better with intermittent fasting. So, and
it's a game changer.
Yeah, there's books, there's people online everywhere. I am not an expert in intermittent fasting. I'm just giving you a testimony on how wonderful and benefited.
I've had some experts on here. Cynthia Thurlow is really well known about intermittent fasting. She's got a TED Talk that's had, I think, something like 10 million views now. Yeah, she's awesome. So check that out. So Ken, thanks. Where can people reach you?
Well, we got basically, you can go to the website c60purplepower.com. And we also have a thing, it's called, when you go, you get redirected. It's actually Shop C60. So
Okay, yeah, I noticed that.
we have a variety of C60 products there. So we have our C60 Purple Power. We got C60 Sexy. That's an edible massage oil. We've got we now got little packets that you can have, like, individual packets you can put in your purse or pocket, and especially their coconut oil. They can do the paleo coffee and stuff. And we're going to also have other things. We're going to have actually a diffuser in there where you kind of put the oil, and the C60 in the oil will diffuse into your house. That's another company that's working with us. So we're going to, and that's especially like in your bedroom or something, if you want to breathe that in, it just does amazing things for people's lungs. So that product's going to be up soon once we get everything arranged. So Shop C60 is going to be like your go-to store
Okay,
for C60 products, but you can always just go to C60 Purple Power. That'll always be there, and that'll just take you right to our site.
perfect. And Ken, is there anything we haven't said yet that you really want to make sure the audience hears?
Oh, I pretty much covered it. I mean, I have shows out there. There's just so much you could talk about C60 for a long time. I mean, the chemistry is unique, and just so many different benefits, and people are learning more every day. I mean, a lot of it's anecdotal, but new studies are coming through every day. But and probably the three things to remember if you're buying a C60 product, whether it's ours or somebody else's, you want to have 99.99% purity, because that's the best in the market. If it's anything less than that, like 99.9, it's probably one of those solvent things, which is the second thing you want to make sure. You want to get sublimated C60. That they should say sublimated C60. Now, some people say solvent free. No, either it's solvent free if it's sublimated. If it isn't sublimated, it isn't solvent free. And then the
Okay,
third is a healthier carrier oil. So you want that thing in like avocado oil or olive oil or MCT coconut oil, or sometimes people just have it in straight coconut oil. But you want those healthy anti-inflammatory oils. And oh, by the way, all of our oils are all organic.
okay,
And the one minor thing, yes, I almost did forget that. On the side of all of our products, you can see there we have like a little QR codes, and you can go to that QR codes. It'll drop you into a landing page, and you can actually see the certificates analysis on where our oil comes from. So it's all organic, and it came from basically it's farm sourced. And then also we have the certificates analysis and the purity of our C60. And then after we make our product, it goes to third-party testers who test for like microbiologics. So there's no microbes in there, and concentration of C60.
hmm. So quality is important,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot of cheapy products out there too.
Oh
So make
yeah.
sure that you're looking for quality.
Yeah. When the C60 market was small and young, pretty much everybody in the market made a good product for their customers. And then the C60 became popular. And at that point, we had all these fly-by-nighters come in to make a buck. And then now, so you have to be careful buying C60 products. There's a lot of people out there that, low concentrations or no concentrations of C60. They're using the solvent stuff, which you probably shouldn't have. And then they use oils that probably aren't healthy for you. So
Hmm. Okay. All right, Ken, this has been fantastic. Thank you for enlightening us on C60, what it is, and all the great benefits. And it could be a game changer for a lot of people. So thank you for spreading the word about it, because this is something, it's leading edge, a little bit new. Not everyone knows about it. So we're doing our part to let people know. Thank you for being part of Wellness by Design today.
well, thank you for inviting me on.
And thanks to the audience for listening, watching. And if you have any questions, just fire them off. I'd be happy to answer them or get the answers for you. All right. Have a great day, everyone.